What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here to predict the Detroit Lions 53-man roster, the final 53-man roster heading into this 2021 NFL season. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, this is probably the toughest thing I've done in a while. Oh my goodness. I'm still not even completely sure with some of these. And keep in mind, this is 100% a prediction. Not my 53-man roster. This is a prediction of what the Lions will do. All right, now this was really tough. One position in particular, I'm sure you all know what that position is, and I guess we'll just cross that bridge as we get there because I'm still kind of leaning a couple of different ways. I have thoughts on 3 guys, and I'm like, I'm not sure what to do, but we're going to get into that. We're going to do this 53-man roster projection. Now, there is a good chance that the Lions add players while they're making cuts as well. I mean, this is something they're going to keep an eye on. Other teams are going to be doing the same things. After cuts, players could be coming in. You know, then you have placements like injury reserve, things like that, which can open up spots to try to bring players back if they don't get claimed by other teams that maybe the Lions like. So there's a lot that plays into this and how this 53-man roster plays out. So it's going to be really tough to project it, and there's going to be a lot of moving pieces, but I'm going to do my best, okay? But I do want to throw out a couple of notes before we get in here. First off, Jayshon Cornell is suspended for the first 3 games, so he won't count towards the Lions roster through the first 3 games. Now, after those 3 games, he will count towards the roster, of course, if he's still here, to make some kind of move to make him active at that point. So we have to keep an eye on that. And by the way, side note, I think he's making the team. All right, so I'll just throw that out there. Also, injury reserve. This plays a very big factor. For a guy like Deshaun Hand, I don't want to see him on IR, but there's a chance that he does go on IR. So let's say, for example, the Detroit Lions keep him and they put him on the roster with these cuts before the deadline, but then after the deadline, they put him on injury reserve. It means they could have a chance to bring him back after 3 weeks. If the Detroit Lions put him on injury reserve before these final 53-man cuts, they won't be able to take him off this season. So if you feel like he can come back, you got to keep him on the roster. As simple as that. That way you can't stash players on IR. I guess that's how they do it. Think of a guy like Shaun Hamilton, right? He can't come back this season. It stinks, but you did it before, and that probably meant that it was a pretty serious injury going on with Shaun Hamilton. So those are just a couple of notes, and we're going to talk through a couple scenarios as we go through this, but let's just dive right into this. This has definitely changed. I went back today, and I've watched this game multiple times over and over and over and over, and I'm still really struggling. I really am. And certain guys, like, for example, Dan Campbell talked about St. Brown. Yeah, that dude was blocking, but there's certain guys that stood out, like Beckett was flying around. You know, there were certain guys that made some plays, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Penasini only took a couple of snaps, but I guess let's just get into this. Let's waste no more time. I'm stalling. At the quarterback position, I have the Lions keeping 3 quarterbacks. I've kind of felt like this since Dan Campbell was like, yeah, I'm hoping to keeping 3 quarterbacks, and I'm still going to rock with it. Now, there is an important part to this, and that's Tim Boyle's injury and how serious it is. Dan Campbell says we expect him to miss some time. Boyle's injury is serious enough where he could potentially make this initial 53-man cut, but then be placed on IR and then come back possibly 3 weeks into the season. It's very possible because he's the backup quarterback position, and potentially to open up another spot, the Lions could do that. Hopefully, it's not that serious, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. But for these initial cuts, I'm going to say he makes the squad, as well as David Blau. I think they roll with 3 quarterbacks. I'm going to go with 3. Lions keep 3 quarterbacks: Jared Goff, Tim Boyle, and David Blau. Now, who's the 2? Who's the 3? I think Tim Boyle would be the 2. But if he's still dealing with an injury, David Blau then would, of course, become the 2 quarterback. Now we move to the running back position, and here's where things already get tough. And this, I mean, I struggle with a lot of these. Because, again, this isn't what I would do. This is me just predicting what the Lions will do. How do the Lions feel? You know, where the Lions going to go with this? And that's what's making it really tough. Because if it was just my opinion, I could be like, you know, I like that guy a little bit better, so I could just put him in there. But because I'm trying to project someone else's, and I don't know what they're going to favor, it makes it so difficult. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Mine would probably look a little bit different, okay? But the running back position is where things get interesting. I'm still rocking with my 4 running backs. I think the Lions should keep 4 running backs. Look, we have a lot of good running backs. I know I'm saying running backs a lot, but I got to give so much credit to Deuce Staley because, man, not even just Deuce, guys that found the players that we brought in, the Anthony Lynn noticing that, hey, Godwin could probably play some running back. I mean, the development here has been incredible. It really has. Like, I feel very confident about our running back room. And I haven't really felt like that before. It was like, oh, maybe we feel good about this guy, and that was kind of it, right? Like last year, oh, DeAndre Swift. And after that, you were like, oh, okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And then when he went down, things became a mess. I don't feel like that this season. I am hyped for Jamar Jefferson. As you see, we rocking the shirt today because I thought he played really well. I got him as my 3rd running back behind Swift and Jamal, as usual. But behind that, things get tough. And I know there's going to be a pretty split comment section. Actually, this could lean one way or the other. I'm going with Godwin Igwebuike as the fourth running back. And I really got to learn to say his name better if we're going to keep him. But I'm going to roll with Godwin at this point. It was a really tough call between him and Craig Reynolds. I went with Godwin for a couple of reasons. Dan Campbell's brought him up now in back-to-back games after the game. He did play well against Steelers, even though his stats didn't look great. He did play well. He's getting reps right after Jamar Jefferson, and he hasn't lost that spot. He actually, I think he moved his way up over Dedrick Mills after the first preseason game. Played really tough in the last game. That goal line run was fantastic. He's developing in terms of being a pass protector, a pass catcher. But then, of course, I know what everybody say, well, what about Craig Reynolds? Craig gets cut. I'm going to be kind of sad. I know he didn't have the numbers, which stinks, and Godwin did for his sake. But, man, he's a ball player, man. He can run. He's got the vision. He makes guys miss. He's a pass catcher. He's a willing blocker. And I'm like, man, he's got everything here. He's got all the tools in the toolbox. I would love to say our fourth running back is a guy like Craig Reynolds. I mean, that would be, after watching him play, it's like, okay, I'm comfortable with what we got. I'm feeling good about it. But my prediction side tells me go with Godwin, go with Godwin. Same time, I like Godwin. I do. Dang, man, we just lost the stud. It hurts. Can the Lions keep 5 running backs? Is that possible? Maybe we do this kicker thing that I'm about to talk about at the end of the video. Yeah, where the Lions cut both their kickers and then they try to bring them back. No? Okay. Yeah, Reynolds is someone that I would have absolutely no problem with making the team. I would be fine with either of them. I like to keep 4, but either of them makes it, I'm smiling. I'm smiling at the end of the day. As long as we roll with 4, I'm going to be a very happy man because I like Craig Reynolds too. And when I watched back the last game, 4 for 9. Doesn't look fantastic. But the guy, he still made plays. That screenplay, you can just see the vision. And even Godwin showed us some of that. He showed us the power just to fight. So I'm going to go that way. I'm going to lean towards Godwin slightly. It's tough because I remember when I did this video yesterday, I said that I'm leaning towards Craig. Projection-wise, I'm going to go with Godwin. Man, it's tough. But either way, I'm going to be happy. And that brings me to the fullback, which is Jason Cabinda. Now, Cabinda has done a lot. Cabinda has done a lot recently in terms of being able to move around, play different spots. So I want to get into that position right now. That's the tight end spot. And a couple of people have done this, and I'm going to do it as well. I have the Lions keeping 2 tight ends here. That means Alize Mack and Brock Wright are both going to be cut at this 53-man deadline. Now, it sounds like, they would keep Mack. And I think if they do keep one, it's going to be Alize Mack. Even though Alize wasn't great last game, and I think Brock has had some solid games, I'm going to go with 2 because Jason Cabinda showed us that he could play kind of that third tight end role if you need him to. The versatility there and his ability to catch the ball has really come around. They love what he's becoming. Jason Cabinda, to me, because he can do that, allows the Lions to cut both of those backup tight ends right now and open up that roster spot where if the Lions play some guys on IR, open up some spots after the initial 53-man roster, maybe they trade, whatever it may be, then they could possibly bring one of these players back. The Lions will have a better chance of landing one of these tight ends back than maybe one of the running backs that they want to keep after roster cuts and claims go down, things like that. I think they'll have a better chance, and I think they'd be okay with Brock Wright or Alize Mack. They like Alize Mack, but I don't know if he's done enough where it's like we have to keep him on the roster. I don't think it's at that level. So this might be one of the spots where the Lions go a little lighter. Now, they have been running a lot of 13 personnel in practice, which makes it tough because you only then have 2 tight ends on the roster. So that'll be something that the Lions have to work out. If they can clear up some spots after this cut deadline, then possibly they could bring someone in, maybe one of those 2 guys, they could bring one of them back, or they could possibly go out and grab someone else for that tight end position, okay? But at this point, just because, there's only so many spots, and this is really, really hard. I'm going with 2 tight ends, and because Cabinda showed us that he could play some fullback. That moves me on to the toughest position yet, and I know some people already hate me, but I'm just predicting here. This is the toughest one, and I have literally for hours just been stuck on this. 3 guys, I'm just sitting there going back and forth, like, who do we go with? Who do we go with? I know what I would do. I think I know what I would do. I don't even know what I would do. But I'm like, what are the Lions going to do here? And I'm going to explain why this is hurting my head. All right, so that's the receiver position. Now, I usually have the Lions go with 6. But at this point, I have them with 5. If someone comes available that they want, they could sign and bring him in before the season starts. They're going to have time to do it. That's possible. Or maybe one of these guys that doesn't make the team, they have him out there in the practice squad, and maybe they elevate him to the game. Maybe they protect him during the week. Something could happen. All right, and I could see them trying to get it back up to 6. But out of the cuts, I have it with 5 right now. Receiver position right now, I have Tyrell Williams. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have Khalif Raymond as my 3 locks. And I actually would throw this next one as lock, too. That's Quintez Cephas. Cephas has been a stud. And even Dan Campbell's like, he brings a little bit something different to our group. And he does. He's a little bit more physical, plays that stronger game. He's also shown versatility, though. Play inside and outside. We saw that in the last matchup. That's nice. Made some plays there to catch. He's really just rose to the occasion. But I want to throw some more love at him, too, because even though he had that holding call, he did show some blocking on the outside. Cephas, to me, put himself in as a lock. He stepped up, and boom, there's your 4. But then it's about 5. Even if we go 6, I'd probably struggle with this, but it's about 5. And I have been going around and around and around and around trying to make this decision on what I think the Lions will do here. So comment down below. I'm sure about 2/3 of you will disagree with this prediction. It's either, to me, Brashad Perriman, Tom Kennedy, or Geronimo Allison. Start off with Tom Kennedy. Tom Kennedy has been the most productive receiver. It seems like on the surface that he's in the best position to make this 53-man roster. It seems like that because they didn't play him a ton because they wanted to get looks at other guys, and more snaps came for guys like Victor Bolden, Ratley. Down the stretch, I think Sage Surratt got more snaps. So other guys were able to get more snaps because they played a little bit less of Kennedy. So that seems like a really good thing for him in a way that he was praising him after the Steelers game. And he was kind of like, I like Kennedy. It sounds like he's in the best spot to make the team and because he's been the most productive right now. I think there's certain receivers that the Lions want. And Quintez Cephas isn't exactly that, but he's the different type of receiver, like Dan Campbell said. But he's also played at a very high level, so you keep him around. But Tom Kennedy gives you an interesting match because I think then you may be lacking a little bit of size, especially if you come out with only 5 receivers. You may be lacking some of that size that you want on the outside. Yes, Kennedy can play slot, and Dan Campbell says I think there's ability to play, at the different spots, Z and the X receiver. But really when he's done that, he's been in tight formations. So that'll be interesting. Plus, they haven't really found a special teams role for him either aside from returners. Brashad Perriman. Now, Perriman has not done what the Lions wanted him to do in the preseason. If you would have went out, and honestly, if you would have caught both of those passes against the Colts, he'd be a lock, no question to me. Just be a lock. But he didn't. And I think Brashad Perriman, one of those guys, the Lions gave some guarantee money more than these other two. Because remember, they didn't bring in Allison. They didn't bring in Kennedy. They're just here. This is the type of receiver that I think the Lions wanted. A guy that can play the X, play against the press on the outside. He's got size. He's got speed. And remember what Dan Campbell said about the type of receivers that he wants. The guy, that what he's looking for in his receivers. Separation, playmaking, and blocking. Separation is one thing that he brings to the table that I'm a little bit concerned Tom doesn't bring to the table as much. Tom's productive, but he doesn't give you really separation as an outside receiver. That's where I'm a little concerned. And even underneath, he's not great at creating separation against some of those more physical slot cornerbacks when he's getting pressed up. He can create separation in his zone, but he doesn't have the size. That's the thing I'm concerned with. Brashad does all those things well. The issue was the playmaking side. Make plays. Can you hold on to the football? Can you make the play with the ball? He didn't do that. Now, he caught that slant, but then he didn't come back and make the next play. He didn't catch the one over the middle. Guys are going to win jobs. So that's where I'm tough with Brashad because I think he's the type of receiver that they want. He got the size and all the traits that they want. Even like Dan Campbell said, there's certain guys that have the build to do it. Now can they apply those fundamentals to the game? They have everything he wants on paper. Plus, he didn't play any special team snaps. So special teams, even though they put some importance on it, they didn't even give him reps at special teams. They're not even looking for a role there. So that makes it very interesting as well. And then finally, Geronimo Allison. And honestly, Allison, he's really weird. Allison's weird because to me, Allison isn't the type of receiver, but he does have the build of the receiver to help the Lions with some of that outside depth. He's better at X receiver. He did play a couple snaps from the inside the slot position, so he showed you some versatility. We know he did that with the Packers, but he was way better at the X. He doesn't give you as much separation. I went back and watched Perriman. He was getting separation. He just didn't make those plays. Allison doesn't give you much separation down the field. He doesn't take the safety attention that much. He's not really a deep threat. Was productive with his opportunities. But the thing is, no one's been talking about him. I haven't heard Dan Campbell talk about Geronimo Allison once. This is one of those guys that put himself kind of in that dark horse mix. If we keep 6, he definitely could take him. I have no problem if the Lions went out there and kept this guy. I just can't bring myself to say that they do it. Really just cannot decide which way I think the Lions would go with this. I actually think they would like to keep 6 receivers, but I wasn't able to make that work out with my roster unless the Lions do something interesting like cutting a Nick Williams or a Kevin Strong or a Deshaun Hand or both of their kickers so they can open up that spot or their long snap or something like that. Maybe a backup quarterback. Maybe they cut one even though we think we're going to keep 3. Then maybe they can do it. But I do feel like, when you're doing your roster, the Lions are going to try to keep the best talent they have. It means like stacking up on certain positions like the defensive line when we get there in the outside linebacker spot. So there's definitely potential to open up this so they could keep 6 receivers. I think they would be definitely open to doing that. But there's been outside linebackers and the defensive linemen that have really stepped up where it's tough for me to kick them out or it's tough for me to cut them. At the receiver position, the Lions have a lot of trust in Tom Kennedy. So last night I did this same take take, and I said Tom Kennedy, but I slept on it. I woke up this morning, and I was still kind of on the fence. I just was not sure. And since it's just a pure projection, I went with Brashad Perriman as the 5th receiver. Now, this isn't like, oh, you hate Tom Kennedy. No, I don't hate Tom Kennedy. I would like to see Tom Kennedy make the roster. I literally put him in my last take. But because of how my roster sets up and I only have 5 receivers, my prediction's tough. I'm going to go with Tom Kennedy. I'm going to go Kennedy gets that 5th spot. I don't know how often they'd have Tom Kennedy seeing the field. I mean, Dan Campbell did say he thinks that he can play at all 3 spots. And if he truly believes that, then he definitely could make sense for this roster. But I think there may be some limitations there offensively, even though Dan Campbell said he's a guy that they trust. And that's the initial reason I went with Tom Kennedy. But right now I have Perriman at 5. I know it sounds crazy. Clearly he did not take advantage of the opportunities in this last game against the Colts. So if he doesn't make this final roster, I completely understand it. And even Geronimo Allison could potentially take this spot as a surprise to people. But I'm going with Perriman right now, but that does not mean he's safe when it comes around to week 1. I think Tom Kennedy, someone the Lions are going to do their best to try to get him back on the practice squad right after cuts. And the Lions may have a better shot of getting him back. May have a better shot of getting him back after cuts than they would with Perriman. This one's just tough. I believe that the Lions make this decision to keep Perriman, or even if it's Allison, I think they can get Tom Kennedy back through these cuts. I do think they can. And with Kennedy, if they keep Kennedy, I mean, he's kind of, to me, just a slot receiver, and that gives you basically 3. I mean, St. Brown's the top. Khalif showed us he could play it a little bit. Cephas showed us he could play it a little bit. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, a brain tells me to lean a little bit towards Perriman. My heart's like, man, Kennedy earned it. Take Kennedy. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So this is that trust side. And I think Lions clearly have more trust in Kennedy right now, but I also think they may trust that he could be brought back more than Perriman. But like I said, Perriman's not safe. Even if he makes this 53-man cut, there's going to be other cuts out there. Players are going to be brought in, and he's going to have to battle, and he could be cut after this 53-man roster. There's definitely that chance. So I'm going with Perriman, but I have to make this decision because it's my sister's birthday, and if I don't, I'm going to be here all day. So I'm going to live with it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We'll know in about a day. We'll see. It is what it is. It's just a projection. Let's move on to the offensive line. Now, the offensive line, I went from 8 to 9 here, so I'm giving an extra offensive lineman. Some of this could change because of injuries that we're dealing with. Dan Skipper got carted off, which kind of takes him out of the play. What is Logan Stenberg dealing with, right? He limped off. We haven't really gotten an update on Stenberg, so I'm not sure what's going on there, how serious it is. Depending on how serious it is, things could, of course, change here, you know, where maybe he makes the roster, gets placed on IR. I hope nothing's that serious because he's had a much better preseason this time around. But the starting 5 offensive linemen, simply put, and then at the backup spot, I'm going with Terrell Crosby, even though he had a terrible rep or that first drive, and honestly so did Sewell on the other side. Less concerned with Crosby because Terrell Crosby just got back and it was like his first series, so I'm okay. I think Crosby will be all right. It was his first series and he hasn't played in a while. Terrell Crosby is basically my 6th offensive lineman. I'm going to put Evan Brown in there as my 7th offensive lineman. The order doesn't really matter. Evan Brown, backup center. I think they'd like to have a backup center. Evan Brown seems to have the leg up here. Evan Heim did not look fantastic. Evan Brown's not been perfect either by any means. But Evan Heim did not look fantastic trying to do this. And Brown showed that he could play a little bit of guard. Didn't look good, but he did play a little bit of guard. So there's been some cross-training there. So I'll go with Evan Brown. 8th offensive lineman, I'm going to go with Logan Stenberg, but the interesting thing will be here is how injured is he? He was coming along, but Tommy Kramer is like right on his heels, and Dan Campbell likes him. So that could be the surprise switch here. I'm going to go with Logan. He's still in his rookie contract. I think he's improved, and they're going to try to get Tommy Kramer back, in my opinion, as fast as they can on this practice squad. It's going to be very interesting, though. I mean, a guy like Evan Brown, he feel like for them, they want to have a backup center. I mean, Kramer may have cross-trained there, but I think they want a pure backup center, especially after releasing, we know, Drake Jackson. And I've kind of tossed around like, well, maybe they go with 2 guards, because right now, you know, your only real reliable backup guard is Stenberg. If he's dealing with an injury, you may have to get someone before week 1 or however long he's dealing with an injury. So I was kicking around keeping 2 guards, keeping Kramer as well. I think Logan's just been more consistent throughout this preseason. Now, the injury is going to tell a lot here, but he's shown the ability to pull, play in his zone blocking scheme. And Kramer, if they keep 10, would be my 10th offensive lineman. I think they're going to do everything they can to get him back on the practice squad. I considered Kramer over Evan Brown, but I think you just need a backup center. So I went with Brown. You know, you could possibly keep 10. I mean, the Chargers did it last year. They kept 10 offensive linemen. With my roster, I just don't think it works out. There are interesting things you can do to do it, but to keep 10. I'm going with 9. I've seen Crosby working at guard a little bit. Evan Brown showed he can play some guard, even though it wasn't that good. But Matt Nelson played a little bit at guard. I mean, I'm not saying they did well there, but I think you're probably leaning towards more tackle depth than guard depth. There's a chance that we see, some sets of possibly 6 offensive linemen this season. To the defense side of the ball, we're at defensive line first, and things can get kind of messy here as well because of injuries and suspension. But Ali McNeil, Michael Brockers, Levi Onwuzurike, and Nick Williams. I think those 4 are kind of locks. Watching Nick Williams back, he was actually pretty good, getting some pressure. I was like, yeah, I like to see that, Nick. And Jayshon Cornell is, of course, suspended, so he's not going to count towards the roster. I have him making the team. He's not going to count towards the roster. Then things get interesting. John Penisini. Things get real interesting here. John Penisini only played in about, 8 snaps in that last game. It was the first time we saw him. When you watch him play, the dude didn't show tons of pass rush upside, but John Penisini is that big body, can play zero tech nose tackle that can stuff the run. And to give a guy some breathers like Ali McNeil, that could be beneficial. One thing I think that's working against him here is that it works in base sets, but when we go to sub packages, we want to go 2 defensive linemen. A lot of times we put them like 1 in 3 tech, 1 to 1 tech, or both in 3 tech, whatever we do there. It's a lot of times that 2-4-5 kind of look. He doesn't really serve versatility. He's not on the field in sub packages. It is his 2nd year, and now he's coming back. We saw a limited amount of snaps. I can't see him getting cut. I can't see that right now. Lions do have the need for the size. That's why they brought in PJ. It's why they brought in Miles Brown when John was injured. Now he's back. We didn't see him a lot, and just kind of feeling like, okay, John's going to be that guy. And I'm not bold enough to say this. I'm not bold enough to predict this, and I do like Penisini. But I think for this defense, Miles Brown, he fits a little bit more of that downhill approach. Penisini, though, going into his 2nd year, as young as he is, he's a guy that I think he's definitely going to be on the roster. I don't see any surprise cut happening there. Also have Deshaun Hand making the roster, but he's one of those guys, hopefully it's not this serious, that could potentially get placed on IR after he makes squad. But again, you do that now, put him on a squad, that way he's not out for the entire season. Hopefully we get him back by week 1, but if they put him on IR, it's 3 weeks, so it's nothing crazy. And of course, you're missing Jayshon Cornell through the first 3 weeks. Chance the Lions can take a little bit of risk and maybe let a guy like Kevin Strong go and try to pick someone up after these roster cuts like a Miles Brown or a Bruce Hector. Both guys played really well and try to bring them back, or even a Strong. Even if they cut him, they could try to bring him back, but there's a chance they get picked up by someone else, of course, before we can bring him back in. But if they feel pretty good about Hand's health, then maybe they're more willing to take that kind of risk. That's the name to keep an eye on, but I think the Lions keep that an extra defensive line, and this is one of the spots I had to make room for, and I'm going to go with Kevin Strong. I think at this point, Kevin Strong, just the snaps he's been getting, probably gives him a slight leg up over Bruce Hector and Miles Brown, but those 2 guys have been really, really good throughout the preseason individually. At least one of them, the Lions will try to get on the practice squad. Now, if the Lions decide not to keep a guy like Strong and maybe they go a little bit lighter at defensive line, then they can try to claim some of these guys back. And if they can land either Hector or potentially Strong back to the practice squad, then that works out perfectly. But I think they're going to go with Kevin Strong. He's been getting much higher reps. He can fill in that Jayshon Cornell role and that Deshaun Hand role. He's 285 pounds. He gives a little more size than Bruce. And Bruce has been really good, but I think it's also a product of the defense that they're playing in. This defensive line is built to get after the quarterback, and we're seeing our guys do it consistently. I love it. Absolutely no complaints. We're seeing it out of everybody. So I'm going to go with 7 technically defensive linemen for the Lions. Moves me to outside linebacker, and this is a spot, again, I decided to keep an extra one. I went with 5 here. All right, so I have, of course, Trey Flowers, Romeo, Julian Okwara. And some people have been deciding between Austin Bryant and Charles Harris. I'm watching these dudes play, and I'm just like, I can't see taking just one. I really can't. Like, would be a really tough spot. If I was doing this, I just could not see a way I could only take one. Now, Austin Bryant could honestly have the leg up if they keep one because he's showing you special teams ability, which Charles Harris hasn't. And he was really good. He was really good against the Colts, stopping the run, making plays in the backfield, getting some pressure. And it was like, dang. And the Lions like his upside. But we do know that he's had some injuries in the past. He's dealt with some things. I like him a lot more in this defense. And he also has had a little bit of ups and downs throughout the preseason anyways. Like week 2 wasn't fantastic. So I'm going to keep Charles Harris because Harris has been getting high reps with Austin Bryant. And Harris looked really good as well in this past game. He showed a little bit of run stop, but he was really just getting after the quarterback and he was flying around. I'm going to go a little bit heavier at this spot. And Julian Okwara, I'm not sure where he falls on the depth chart here, but he was showing some run stopping ability as well. So I liked that. I'm going to go with 5 at outside linebacker. We're going a little bit heavier in the front 7 with this defense. Inside linebacker, where I have 4. I'm going to go a little lighter here. I have the Detroit Lions going with Alex Anzalone, Jamie Collins, and then behind that, Jalen Hurts-Maben and Derek Barnes. Yes, Tavai is cut in this scenario, and so with Anthony Pittman. Pittman was someone I considered trying to get back. I just couldn't find a way to do it based on how my roster ended up. And Tavante Beckett, I like him, but Dan Campbell made it kind of clear he was going to practice squad. He looked fast. I liked watching him play. The hustle. Pittman showed some sideline-to-sideline speed, but I think at this point, especially with Beckett, Dan Campbell made it kind of clear that he's going to be a practice squad guy. He's not there physically yet, so I'm going to go with 4 inside linebackers, and that's not anything crazy. I mean, like last year, the Rams went with 3, so we're going with 4 here. I feel like there's enough versatility where they could rock with 4. 5 would be ideal. It'd be nice, but I think there's enough versatility to rock with 4 heading into this year. When I look at these interior deep linebackers, you know, I see a guy like Jonas Bateman who had the green dot on his helmet, getting guys in the right spot, so I can see some Mike versatility within his game, and he was brought in, remember, back to that 2017 4-3 scheme. But then, of course, we know he can play like a weak side linebacker, and he can fly around, helping pass coverage. You saw it last game. And we know that Derek Barnes is the Mike. You know, he's the Mike linebacker backup. Don't know if there's as much of will ability here, but we know they like him at Mike linebacker. Plus, there is some outside linebacker ability. If the Lions wanted to flip this around, I could possibly see it, maybe keep an extra inside linebacker, and knowing that Derek Barnes can play outside linebacker, but I feel like the Lions want Derek Barnes inside. That's where they want to play him. And the outside linebacker position, like those 5 have looked good. There hasn't been as good of play behind Vi and Anthony Pittman and Beckett, I would think, at the level that the outside linebacker has had. So I chose to go a little bit lighter there. Back then, we're looking at Jeff Okudah, Amani Oruwariye, AJ Parker, Ife Melifonwu. Those are your 4 that I think are, actually, I would say Mike Ford's also a lock. He was fantastic last game watching it back. Man, that dude can play. We know inside and outside versatility there too. So I love me some Mike Ford Jr. So those are the 5 locks. Behind that, it got tough. It was kind of tough. I'm going to go with 6. I'm going to go with Corn Elder. Took Elder over Coleman. Yeah, this was tough. And now that the connection, you know, is reunited with Roby Coleman, they might go with Roby Coleman. And it's not just off the pick alone, but I just know that they signed this guy first when Roby Coleman, I believe, was also available at the time when they went out and signed Elder. Elder had a strong last season. Coming back and showing this, his first game back was kind of like, oh, wait, this might be the guy that the Lions were expecting to get. So I'm going to go with the vet here. Now, both of them kind of lack the outside versatility, which stinks. It makes Jerry Jacobs interesting, and the guy played 40 snaps, but I just don't think the Lions will say that he's ready for this 53-man roster. I just don't think they will do that. So I'm going to go with the vet and Corn Elder. If they do think Jerry Jacobs is ready, cool, I'm in for it. Let's do it. Let's ride with it. I like it. He can tackle. He can play special teams. I like it. And Elder and Roby Coleman have played a little bit of special teams for the Lions, but I'm going to go with Elder as my 6th cornerback. That's what I'm looking at. The safety spot, I'm going to go with 4. This one's changed a little bit. I really like Jalen Elliott, but I think CJ Moore becomes the guy. I'm going to go, of course, with Tracy Walker, Will Harris, Dean Marlowe, who played really well again, and CJ Moore. Simply put, those are my 4 safeties. I like Elliott, but I think they're going to go with CJ Moore. And then the special teams. And this is where things get weird because there is a scenario out there, and I was reading about this today, and I really liked it. So shout out to, I can't remember who put this out, but I liked it. Possibly cutting both of your kickers. And I know it sounds crazy. I first read it, I'm like, wait, well, hold up. We can't cut both of our kickers. I mean, we got to have somebody. You cut both of your kickers, and then what you do is that opens up the extra roster spot. Then after the cuts, you could try to bring a kicker back and claim him, okay? Now, because you have Zane and Randy Bullock, who have both been kind of like this, but neither one has really separated themselves. It seems like they lean towards Bullock. So I'm going to stay safe. I'm going to stay in my bubble here, and I'm going to be very safe with this and go daily, you know, Randy Bullock and Jack Fox. But if the Lions are going to be bold, they could do something like this. Cut them both. Potentially, if one can stay available, you don't need both, just one, you could bring him back, you know, for the season to start, and then you got a kicker. And then also you could possibly grab someone else if someone else is out there. But if the Lions don't want to risk that, they're like, hey, no, we like Bullock or we like Zane, I'm going to go with Randy Bullock. I'll stay safe. I won't go crazy here. I'll go with Randy Bullock makes the team. But I do like the idea. There's also the idea they could do that long snapper with Scott Daly. I thought I would end it off with this kind of like last picture here. This is kind of the practice squad. And look, the Lions, their practice squad is not going to be made up of all Lions. I can probably guarantee that. But I think these are like the players that the Lions will target and that they'll have their eye on as soon as the cuts happen, if their cuts went like this. Now, the order doesn't really matter, but a couple of them, like Tom Kennedy, I think he's high priority for sure if he gets cut. Geronimo Allison could also be high priority as well as one of the vets to take that spot in this situation. So I would definitely look at those two guys. Craig Reynolds. I don't have Dedrick Mills on here, but I have Craig Reynolds. If it's Craig or Godwin, either one, whichever one doesn't make the team, to me, I think they're high priority as well. Jalen Elliott is someone to look at. Tommy Kramer is high priority. So there's a few on here I think the Lions are going to try to jump on very fast if they can. Bruce Hector could also be in this mix as well. Maybe even Miles Brown. I don't even know if I have him listed, but maybe even Miles Brown. But those are just some of the guys. Devontae Beckett, for sure. The Lions want to get Devontae Beckett on this practice squad, and he looked pretty good. Anthony Pittman could be an interesting name as well. That is my final 53-man roster projection. It was super tough. I mean, you guys can see just I mean, what do they call it? Chicken scratch? It's kind of a mess. And I have like 3 notebooks I've done this on. It's hard. I don't like cutting anybody. And I know I'm not even cutting them. I'm just projecting. I hate it. All right. I know this ain't going to be 100% correct, but that was my goal, is to try to be as close to perfect as I could with this. I know I'm going to be wrong, but I'm definitely interested to see what this 53-man roster looks like once you start going down on Monday. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really ready to see what goes down and what happens. Expect to see some pickups for sure. This is going to be interesting because so many of these positions are really tight. Defensive line, receiver, running back, right? I mean, so many of these spots, outside linebacker, like so many of these spots are just so up for grabs. It's like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Are we going to go with 3 quarterbacks? There's a lot of for grabs, but this is my 53-man roster. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you, Prep, for watching, and I'm out.